Richard Hume, health, fitness fanatic, motivator, triathlon, marathon, rowing junkie. That close to the mark?
Yeah, I would say so. It's a long list of being very single and having a lot of spare time on my hands in the early youth.
Yeah.
But no, it was good.
Your story is quite a story. Your name first came up from another person who came on Incredible Lives, Tony Mowbray, Newcastle's adventuring sailor, lunatic. He said he ran into you at Bulahdelah trimming hedges. I left that out of your bio.
Yes. Yeah, no,
How'd that come about?
we used to we sold our glamping retreat in January.
Yep.
And then I got a job because the kids were at school in Bulahdelah, and at the caravan park, just literally doing gardening. Met Tony, who is quite a character. Told me all about everything that he does and his book, and he sort of was interested in my story, and I started talking to him about rowing oceans, that kind of stuff, and as a bit of a weird sort of older man type thing, he invited me back to his house, and I didn't know what it was for. And it was all just to talk about all these adventure things. And because he's had such an amazing career doing sort of guest speaking and that kind of stuff, he was like, oh, you've got a story that could easily be doing this. Yeah. And that was the sort of one door closed and the next one opened. And it's been great.
He's become a bit of a mentor for you.
Oh, 100%. 100%. He's I've spent hours at his house now going through a sort of a story and just making sure that, you know, I can present myself well enough. I put the story in some sort of chronicle order, which I'm, you know, renowned for not doing very well. And he's given me a bit of a kick up the backside, to be honest, to try and do something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And before I came to Australia, I did a little bit, but again, with no real guidance. So no, it's been great. It's been life changing. It's been great.
There he is up there.
Yeah.
Is it some of the things that he's done really inspiring? Was it a case of, you know, he was sort of, when he heard your story, it's almost like you probably dumb it down or downplay your story, and it took someone like Tony to go, no, you've got an incredible story.
Well, what makes me unique to a lot of other people is that all the different sports stuff I do are very unique. They shouldn't be being done in succession to each other. You know, the physical prowess you need for doing long distance triathlon is very different to doing long distance rowing. Sailing is something that interests me a lot to talk about, but in terms of actually being a sailor, it's something that it doesn't grab me 100%.
Yeah.
And I find that with these sports things, I'm sure Tony will you know, say the same thing. All these events are so different for no reason at all. One absolutely grabs you and the other one doesn't. Yep. I've got no interest in climbing mountains, but walking to the South Pole, boom, I'd love to do that. And yet walking to the South Pole involves the cold, long days, few mountains, all that kind of stuff. So it's very, very different. But I mean, his stories of the Hobart race in '98 and then going around the world, I could sit and listen to it all day, and thankfully Tony could sit and talk about it all day.
Hypothetical.
Yeah.
He's going on another Sydney to Hobart yacht race. Richard, there's a seat for you.
Having met his wife, I'd imagine he's not the easiest on a boat, and he'd probably shout at me. No, I think I probably would. The one big thing, and I'm sure we'll come to it later, is I get seasick pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'll be a whole nother storm in the ocean just for me being sick over the side all day long.
Yeah.
But no, I would jump at the chance to experience just a millionth of what he's done with him. I think it'd be brilliant.
Well, as I said before, you've got an incredible story, and I thought I'd do yours a little bit different to the other podcasts we've done with the guests. I like to usually bounce back and forward in regards to their careers and their journeys, but I think with yours, it's easier to go from start to finish, and it all rounds itself out in the end.
Yeah.
I'd like to start with your second paragraph of your keynote speech. Who or what is Richard Hume? I'm a simple, basic person who doesn't have any special skills. I have no qualifications. I have a driver's license. There is nothing exceptional about me. I'm not a theorist. I'm a doer.
Yeah. So I was very dyslexic at school, so I found academic prowess quite difficult. I do have a low-level sports degree from England, but it's not sort of comparable to here. I have this unique ability just to switch off. So you hear a lot about these sports stars talking about getting into the third, fourth, fifth dimension. They might be able to do it once in their career where, they do an event, they are unbelievable, and when you speak to them about it, they can't actually remember it. I had this ability just to switch off like that.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I have to work really hard to look at an event that I've done, look at the photos, look at the videos, and then try and have my own separate memories other than what I've visually seen. Yeah, when I say there's not a lot going on in my head, I plan these events meticulously. I start at very worst case scenario and work my way backwards.
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual what's going on in my head, I can just switch off. I mean, I was listening to storybooks when I was doing my sport long before podcasts came along, because I'd then get lost in that world. And that's what made it easier for me. I did all my training by myself, because I just had a lifestyle that meant that I couldn't be parts of clubs and all that kind of stuff. I had to do everything myself. So I had to come up with these mechanisms, these ways to try and get the best out of myself without boring myself. And fortunately that was what I was able to do.
You were born prematurely, which saw your inner ear not develop properly. So you could, you pretty much couldn't hear properly till the age of 6. Did you know what was going on at the time? At that age, you don't even think about things like that.
I don't think so, but I do remember being at preschool. So, age 3, 4, and 5. And I have a very vivid memory of it visually, but I don't remember the sounds.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's just slipped from my memory, I don't know. But there has to be some sort of correlation with that. But the big thing with that was that I then lost those very formative years of learning all the sounds, the very basics of the foundation of everything that we do from now on. So it definitely would have had an impact on me. And I think there's lots of little triggers like that created a little bit of resistance in my makeup and in the way that I approach things. And it wasn't actually till I met Tony that we started dissecting the story that suddenly these little triggers were things like, oh, well, maybe that made a difference. Maybe this made a difference. And all those little things.
It's very similar to, I grew up, so when I went to school, I was 5 years old. And at the time, once you turned 5, you had to, you could go to school. You could be kept back till 6 or, and I think it might be different by now. I don't know. But I was born in June, which means as soon as I turned 5, I went to school in June, halfway through the kindergarten year. Now I turn up, and when you're a 5-year-old, you think it's your first day at school. You think it's everyone's first day at school. So I turn up and I'm just looking around and I'm upset because it's like, my mum's leaving. And I'm looking at the other kids going, why aren't they upset? Why do they know where to go? How do they know to stand in line? How do they know? And I look back, similar to what you're saying, I look back 20 years later and I went, wow, I got off to a really slow start, but I didn't even know it. And I actually told my mum that, and she got upset with me. She said, well, that's the way you did it back then. But I look back then and my grades were terrible all the way through the years. And I look back and I go, had I started the year after, that would have made such a difference. And it's sometimes it takes a while before you can actually work that out.
I mean, I've noticed it a lot so I've got 2 young children, and one of them's born in December and one of them's born in March. So one's very old for her year and one's very young for her year.
Yeah.
You can see it straight away from a developmental point of view. Little Maddie, the youngest, is way ahead of where Ella was at the same age, but then she's almost had 9 months extra schooling. But I'm a massive believer in that, everything happens for a reason, and that resilience, that sort of being forced to meet new people and trying to get into their circle of friends helps you when you get a little bit older to then be able to hold a conversation with someone, look someone in the eye, shake their hand, all that sort of stuff that is kind of getting lost in what's going on. So yeah, no, I'm exactly the same.
And especially dyslexia. You didn't realise until you were 16.
Yeah, well, so I can't work out if it's super offensive or not, but for me to get through to the age of 16, before I sort of got diagnosed as being dyslexic, and none of the teachers saw that, they must have thought I was really dumb, like really
they weren't
dumb.
doing their job.
Or they weren't doing their job, hopefully none of them are listening to this. So you know, like, and then it's a double-edged sword, because then you get diagnosed with dyslexia in the late 1990s, and all of a sudden your exams aren't 2.5 hours long, they're 3.5 hours long. Well, the time wasn't the problem. Like, that last hour, which I was given extra, I would just sit there and twiddle my thumbs because the information hadn't gone in there. If I could have read the question correctly, I may have written a correct answer, but I didn't. I couldn't even read the question, so it went the wrong way. So I think that, from, again, going back to how I think, one of the great positive things about being dyslexic is it allows you to look at things from a slightly different perspective, slightly outside the box, look at problems in a slightly different way that perhaps other people do. And it means that when you come across a big challenge, you try and solve problems that other people wouldn't necessarily see in a slightly different way.
Yeah, so it's working it out differently, like diversifying.
Correct.
In a way.
Yeah.
Do you still struggle with your reading?
Well, if there's a book that I know I'm going to enjoy and there's a movie, I'll go and watch the movie first. No, I mean, spelling is tricky. I've got really good punctuation for some reason, but spelling is tricky. And yeah, you just learn to cope with it, really. Yeah. I mean, you know,
Did it sort of galvanise you in a way?
I wouldn't say galvanise. It just sort of was. I had to deal with it. I think had it been found out much younger, I perhaps would have found it as an excuse to not do things. But because it was later, and I'd already sort of established myself as a human being in the school environment and all that kind of stuff, I already had an identity. So it was just sort of a thing. But it definitely influenced me. You know, my A-levels, so I guess that's the equivalent to the HSCs here. I did geography, art and theatre studies, and I did physical geography. They're all outside, they're all with your hands, they're all doing something, not writing essays all day long. And when you look at my grades, the practical stuff I was very good at, the written stuff, I was hopeless. And then university, I went and did sport. The practical side I was really good at. The other stuff, I got through just. And then I've always had jobs that are very sort of hands-on.
So do you feel that everything you've done in your life, you know, you look back and you go, I'm actually glad I probably didn't get diagnosed till I was 16, because you look back and go, wow, I was fairly resilient to the age of 16. Had I been diagnosed with that before, maybe I wouldn't have made a journey of the way I've gone.
Yeah, I think I think that's definitely a possibility. I mean, just think if I'd had help earlier and sorted out the problems earlier, I may have decided to have been a doctor, and I would have been rubbish. You know? So I think, I mean, it definitely shaped me. It gave me work ethics. I had to work that much harder than everyone else to get the same results. And that I really picked that up when I'm at home around the house. You know, I've got really good batteries. I can just keep on going. I see a challenge, and it's kind of like, until it gets dark, I won't stop. So yeah, it definitely helps in that way.
Yeah, you loved your sport. Yeah, growing up, cricket, rugby, golf. At a 15-year-old, at the age of 15, a specialist tells you you might not play any sport again. There you are playing cricket. You had curvature of the spine. Geez, that would have been devastating.
Yeah, it was. So the story is that Mum took me to the doctors quite a few times in the lead up to being diagnosed, just the local GP, and was sent away each time saying, "You're being ridiculous. There's nothing there." And then I actually went to I went to a Harry Potter kind of school, and we were having our medical. And when I had my medical, the doctor was kind of like, no, there's a problem here. And it coincided with sort of the early stage of puberty, putting on a bit of weight and that kind of stuff. So you just went more and more hunched. I was also quite a lot taller than a lot of my peers, so I was always looking down on them physically, not, you know.
Well, I mean, 92 degrees.
Yeah.
I mean, is it painful?
It's...
Or just uncomfortable?
It was just normal. But when I eventually got it sorted out much later on, and I woke up and realised that there was a world without back pain, the world's a pretty beautiful place because of it. So in that picture, I'm not really bending down all that much. The 92-degree curvature was sort of coming from back to front, but I also had sclerosis, which is slightly left to right as well. It wasn't that uncomfortable at the time from what I remember. However, I was very conscious of it. When I went out to like a party or something like that, I was really conscious of it. And the only reason I was conscious of it, I was doing all this sport. I was very, very fit, but I could never get a six-pack. I could never do any of that sort of stuff. And it annoyed me. And it turned out that if I did do stomach crunches, I was just rolling on my spine. I wasn't doing anything. I could do millions of them every single day. I was doing nothing. I don't remember it being painful. I remember when I would then had to have a back brace to try and straighten me up. So the idea was you wear a back brace, and whilst you're still growing, that forces you to stay in a straight line, and that really that was painful. It used to catch me underneath my arms by my waist because it was a full body cast, and that was difficult.
So when you were at school, you probably would have found out who your real friends are. Did you get ridiculed for that?
I was at boarding school. So once everyone got over the fact I had it, that was fine. I was a little bit like a tortoise, so it had a little lip at the back of it that went slightly higher than my shirt. And I remember being in the lunch queue on the first day that I had it, and someone pulled me back on it, and I just went flat on my back, and then I couldn't turn over. I couldn't do anything, so they had to help me up. And I think once that happened the first time, it was then never really talked about. On top of that, because I was sort of hopefully kind-natured, and I'd already established myself as a half-decent sports person, then I wasn't a jock, so to speak, but I had an identity already. I wasn't just the quiet person that was sort of geeky in the corner. And then I learnt ways to, for instance, play golf whilst wearing the brace. I found that I spoke to the doctor and said, if I wear it during the night time and I wear it when I bat, can I field playing cricket? So I was still able to do that. Rugby, everything else was a no-brainer. So I found ways to try and deal with it. And I actually think if I'd been at a day school and I was getting on the bus every day with different people, different strangers, different kids from other schools, I think I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Well, it would have been a completely different story.
Did the doctors ever give you an assurance that it would be cured? Was there a worry that it would never be?
They said I would become officially normal. Now, normal is between 20 and I think it's 46, 47 degrees coming forward. And by the time I was 18, it was paramount that I wore the brace through my adolescent years, and when I was 18, I should be in the low 40s. Now, this was this was in the late 1990s, pre-Afghanistan, all those places, and medical advances go through the roof when there's a conflict somewhere, because they're given people they can operate and try new things on. And putting rods in your spine is a very dangerous operation, certainly back then. Now it's more common terms. So the brace was really the only option at that time that was viable for someone that was still growing. Because it wasn't just a couple of vertebrae that needed to be fused, it was the whole lot. I was told, ironically at that time, we can get you back to something vaguely normal, but when you're near 40, there's a high chance the curve is going to return and we'll have to see what is available to you at that point.
Which we'll get to a little bit later. Your dad was a paraplegic. Was that from birth, or was it via an accident?
No, he fell off a horse when he was 17, and I couldn't tell you where he broke his back, but his upper body was absolutely fine. It was purely just waist down to his legs, and everyone says, "Oh, does it affect me? Did it affect my family life?" I don't know. We didn't have a dog because going for a walk was impossible. We didn't go on skiing holidays because that was hopeless. But otherwise, we sat on the grass at Lord's and Twickenham for rugby and cricket. We always parked nearest the shopping centre front door. We got we got carried on and off aeroplanes, so that was nice and easy. So as far as I was concerned, it was just business, what it was, business as usual.
Because I mean, he was a lawyer, so he seemed to get on with life despite the setback.
Yeah, he did. And I mean, imagine being in London in a wheelchair in the sort of 70s, because I think he had it in 65, something like that.
Because these days there's wheelchair access everywhere, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely time. So when I left university, I was helping him in London. He became one of the City of London mayor lawyer people. He'll be offended that I've explained him like that. And so he has to go to a lot of dinners and things. So I would do that. I'd be his driver and that kind of stuff. But there was one time I was helping him out there, and we flashed down. He asked me to go and flash down a taxi, and I said, "Oh, why do you want me to flash down a taxi?" He said, "You'll see." So I flashed down a taxi. Taxi stopped. He came around the corner. Taxi drove off. So the second they saw someone in a wheelchair, they're like, "Nah, we're not doing this." But then he was also pretty stubborn. I remember he took me to France one time, and we were in Paris, and he thought it'd be a good idea to try and get me to lift him up halfway up the Eiffel Tower because the elevator was broken.
Yeah.
I was like 13 years old, 14 years old, and trying, he didn't see it as being any different. And again, the more that I met Tony and we went back through my story, it's those little moments that just make you really resilient. I mean, he had a fantastic life, but he had 2 sons.
Yeah.
So if we went on holiday, we'd both pick him up and put him in the speedboat, and then he'd watch his sons water ski.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound funny, but if he'd had 2 young girls, those things probably wouldn't happen. I mean, he was.
Yeah.
I believe that if he was standing, he was 6'2". He was built like not a tank, more like an elephant. He was a heavy set guy.
Yeah.
And he was lucky that he had me and my brother. My brother's very strong. I mean, he's a completely different character to me. I think that probably did install some things in me.
Can we get that picture back up, Dave, just of mum and dad there? Your mum?
Yeah.
Was she the redhead?
No one's a redhead. I know.
I think it's a black and white photo.
I think my granny was a redhead. Hopefully the milkman wasn't. I honestly don't know. I mean, my granny always had white hair as far as I was concerned, but I suspect that may have been ginger beforehand. But the gene stays dormant until someone worthwhile comes along that needs it. And I think that's probably what it was.
Well, you're born prematurely,
Yeah.
you're dyslexic, you've got a curvature of the spine, you're redhead. Geez, you had a bloody curveball.
The hair was down to my shoulders as well. So it was proper red. Yeah.
Mate, just when you were told that you had to wear that brace, I mean, again, just doing things in everyday life like that most people would, be able to do easily. Was that a setback?
I don't remember. I don't. I remember getting the brace fixed.
You feel like you blocked it out?
I do have that ability to block things out like that, but I think I just got on with it. I was just like, okay, this is it. I've got to wear this. I need to get a bit fitter because the brace wasn't very comfortable. As I grew, I had a new brace maybe every 6 months, and it was a strange old thing. It came up here, and then it had an empty patch here, and then it came around your waist, and then it was all around the back. And I used to go out. I remember when I was 16, I was in Spain one time, and I went out to a bar because it was legal to drink then at 16 in a bar.
Yeah.
And we were having a great time, and I wasn't getting drunk, and I didn't know what was going on. Got back to the house or hotel at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Undid the straps at the bottom. All the alcohol went straight into my stomach in one go, and I was out like a light. So yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I always thought I didn't have girlfriends because I was ginger, but maybe it was because I had this thing sticking out my back.
I think that beer episode, I think Dave and I was going to have to get a brace when we go out for a drink. So life's really thrown you a shit sandwich early on, but it was a family holiday to the Caribbean, sitting on a rock wall. That really, when you think about it, was the catalyst to where you are today, like a turning point. Tell us about that.
So I'd never heard of rowing the Atlantic. I never even heard of. I mean, I was lucky enough to hear that the Atlantic Ocean existed, but not really how you got across. And we were sitting on the breakwall in Barbados. We used to go to Barbados every Easter, sort of school holidays. Mm-hmm. That was our equivalent of, you know, the Aussies going to Bali, for instance. Mm-hmm. But it was the highlight of our year. It was good for Dad. The hotel was all nice and flat. And we were sitting on this breakwall, and you know, beautiful sunrise, a beautiful vista, I should say. And on the horizon was this little boat. And as it sort of came across the horizon, it became very evident that it wasn't a sailing boat or a power boat. It was a rowing boat. And it was in view for quite some time, and it sort of literally went right way across. And I was just there in complete awe, complete silence. I mean, this was literally 2, 3, 4 weeks after I'd been told, right, you ain't doing sport for a long time, you've got to wear this brace. And I was absolutely transfixed. And it went right up quite close to us, and then round the headland to what I now know was the finish line. And
so how many were on the boat?
Just two Kiwis, or two boats. I mean, I think it was called Kiwi Challenge, so I assumed they were Kiwis. And I turned to my mum, or no, I spoke to someone else there who said, "Oh, those are the guys who are rowing the Atlantic Ocean from La Gomera to Barbados at that time." And I just turned to my mum and said, "That's what I'm going to do. That if I've been told I can't do stuff, what's the worst thing I could do for my back? That's what I'm going to do." I had no prior experience of the ocean. Nothing like that. But it absolutely transfixed me, and that's what I meant earlier when I said, you know, climbing Everest, no interest. South Pole, I could see it easily. So I found out about it there, and then I turned to Mum and said, "Yeah, this is what I want to do." And literally, I got home, jumped on the computer, found out that it was a race, ordered the poster for the race, or as it turned out, it was part of an information pack about the race. And that poster went straight up in my bedroom at home. When I was at school, it came to my school. When I was at university, it came to university. When I had a shared house, it was in my shared house. And every so often, I would look at it and I would just be like, "Oh, wouldn't that be awesome?" But it's a hell of a challenge.
Yeah.
And you get people who are 18 who do it nowadays. I didn't have financial backing. I didn't have any physical prowess. I wasn't in any right physical or mental state at that point to even think about it. I just knew one day.
I was going to say, do you feel that moment happened for a reason? Like when you look back, as I say, the turning point, if you didn't have curvature of the spine, would you have still thought about wanting to do that? Or was that the thing where I think I could do that, to say, stick this up your ass, curvature of the spine?
That's an awkward question, isn't it? Would I have done that? I think the stubbornness was already there. I think the interest in looking at the sports that I did and how I had quite good batteries, I think the endurance part was probably already, the seed was probably already sown. The rowing part, I don't think so. It may have resurfaced a couple of years later when the Brits beat the Aussies in the Sydney Olympics rowing, and the UK went stir crazy over Steve Redgrave winning his 5th gold medal and everything else. So it may have got stirred up by that again had I not had the back. But I don't know. I mean, my algorithms on Facebook would be a lot better now, because all it is ocean rowing. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know.
Do you feel? I mean, it's sometimes things like that can inexplicably, jump out at you, But the big thing is, I suppose, realising it at the time and seizing the day.
Yeah, it's one of those things I don't realise. I remember when it happened, and I remember the aftermath of it, but I don't remember never talking about it beforehand. So it's just one of those things. And yeah, I'd like to think it wasn't just those two guys. When I went in 2010, Dad said we would have gone on holiday, but he wouldn't have paid for my air ticket. So maybe I would have rode there anyway. I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that because I don't know.
At Elk Architecture, we don't just design buildings, we shape the spaces where life happens. From concept to construction, our award-winning architects bring our vision to life with precision, passion, and purpose. Whether it's your dream home or your next big commercial project, trust Elk Architecture to build what matters most. Elk Architecture, designed for life, built for the future.
You met a guy in the gym that changed your life. His name was Dean Paxton. Tell me about him.
Good old Dean. So when I was officially normal and I graduated from university, I was getting back into my sport. I bought my first bike because of the whole Lance Armstrong thing, and so I was doing a bit of cycling and stuff. And I was in the gym, and there's a guy called Dean. He was an American guy, looked a little bit older, but nothing special. But very, very fit, very, very strong, sweated profusely, one of those grunters in the gym, the sort of person you just want to stay away from.
A little bit like me when I'm in the gym.
I kept bumping into him, and eventually we ended up talking. And he was so enthusiastic about this thing called an Ironman triathlon. Now, I didn't know what an Ironman triathlon was, but all I knew was that it had a swim, a bike, and a run. And it was for a very long, long way. And he billed it to me as though it started off by a swimmer saying to a cyclist, "I'm fitter than you," and the cyclist saying, "No, but I'm fitter than a runner." Mm-hmm. And that was how it started, because they wanted to see what was the fittest discipline. And so I was talking to him about it, and a little bit like the rowing, he was telling me it's a...
Because he was an Ironman, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was an Ironman, yeah.
And how old was he?
76, I think it was.
76, and he was doing Ironman.
Yeah, and not only that, I couldn't work out why he kept winning. And what he actually meant was he kept winning his age group, because he was the only competitor in his age group. So as long as he finished, he was fine. He was always going to the World Championships and all this kind of stuff. But when he's telling me, it's a 3.8 kilometre swim, 180 kilometre bike ride, 42 kilometre run, I was just thinking, oh, that sounds interesting. That would give me a reason to want to get fit. So maybe there's a bit of scope there.
Well, Dave, I mean, this just means that we don't have to go to the gym now. We just wait till we're like 75, 80. We've got plenty of world champions left, the championships left in us.
But just to make you feel really bad, you're in your prime.
Well,
you're in your prime at like 40, 45 to 55.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't want to speculate. I don't know how old you are.
I'm 53.
Well, you're in your prime. Yeah. You should be out there now doing it.
But you find also too, there's a lot of male and females that start taking up these sort of things at that time of their life, probably 45 plus. Is it because, I suppose, their life's different? They've got time to do it.
Three reasons, and this is what makes me even more unique with the sports stuff that I was doing. They've either divorced very well, so they have a bit of money in their back pocket and no responsibilities. The kids have left home, or they've just found themselves in a position where, they're at work, they're able to take a day off here, day off there. They can push their lunch breaks from half an hour to maybe an hour and a half and go for a jog or something. It's very, very unusual to find a 20, 25-year-old pushing themselves to those extremes.
Yeah.
You look at a lot of the ultra endurance runners, all those people, they've been very active in their 20s, but something has happened in the maturity of their body, in whatever it might be, probably in their early 30s, it's then set the foundation to the next thing. So that definitely made me unique in that perspective. There were a few other things that sort of happened. You know, when I left school and university, a lot of my friends got into the drug and alcohol scene. I wasn't that interested in that. So I was at a loose end on a Friday night and a Saturday night. So if I was at a loose end, that meant I could stay at home. And if I could stay at home, that meant I could train all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and not have to worry about anything. So there were a few things like that that cropped up. But yeah, the Ironman just filled me with absolute dynamite. I was kind of like, this just sounds epic.
So you decide, this is for me, but you decide to sign up for an Ironman event before even trying a triathlon, which is, wouldn't that be the other way around? Like the Ironman seems to be the harder thing.
Yeah, so the Ironman is the sort of blue ribbon. That's the big event. As I said before, there's not a whole lot going on in my head. But what triggered it was I actually called the race director of the Ironman UK, and this was back in the day when they weren't selling out in 2 minutes. And I said to him, would I be stupid doing an Ironman as my first ever triathlon? And he just said, probably trying to sell tickets, naivety is your best friend. And I think had I done smaller ones, they might, you might get to a half Ironman, have a bad day and think, oh my God, there's no way I can go further. I had no idea what was going to happen. So I just went along with the day. And I literally trained my backside off. I didn't know if I was doing it right, wrong, good, bad. I just did what I wanted to do. I took advice when I could. Dean did sort of indicate to me that, the swim is the least important thing in almost everybody else's eyes because it's the shortest thing, you're in there the least amount of time. But he said, don't underestimate the power of putting a good foundation down. He said, if you come out that water having had a great swim, everything else will fall into place. If you come out having had a bad swim and try and play catch up on the bike, the run will be rubbish.
Yeah.
And I took that on board. It was the one bit of advice I really took on board, and it set me up for everything else that I do. Even today, everything's about foundations. Get the foundation right, everything else just falls into place.
I suppose too, in regards to doing something like this at a harder level, it means going back to a triathlon would be a piece of piss after an Ironman, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it would. In all honesty, apart from on 2 occasions, I wouldn't know. I've never done anything shorter apart from 2 small ones.
Wow.
Just because once you do the Ironman, if you're transfixed by it, you want to go again, or you want to go further, or whatever you did. I did in training decide to do a marathon in the hope that I'd at least have a marathon under my belt. But I was too young. I went off too fast and messed it up and ended up sitting on a brick wall crying.
You brought a bike. Was that what was your best leg?
The swim.
The swim.
Ironically, the bike. I was always hopeless at the bike. I had no.
You look pretty competent there.
Yeah, I look confident. I had all the gear. I just had no idea. Yeah, I look good. I mean, this is a prime example, right? So I'm wearing a tri-suit because that's what you're meant to wear. So you've got your cycling shorts, then you have a top. I'd never worn that top before in my life, and my shoulders are exposed. I'm a little white ginger kid. It was a sunny day in England. The sun cream didn't last long enough. I ended up with 3rd-degree burns on my shoulders.
So your skin pretty much looked the colour of your sunglasses by the end of it.
Well, that's rude. Yeah. The pus and the blisters. Yeah. No. I mean, it was awful. I mean, I have a little bag between my legs for my food. I didn't know what that was for.
But
it was crazy.
Even with training for that, is that hard as well? Especially if you've never been in an Ironman. On what do you train the hardest? Is it you try and do this? Do you know the sort of level you need to be to get better at the bike, or better at the run, or better at the swim?
If you do lots of triathlons in the lead up to it, or 100%, if you've never done one before, you have no idea. So it would literally be, I'd wake up in the morning, and I was working as a personal trainer at the time, and it'd be like, okay, well, I've got an hour and a half's free time here. well, that's not long enough to go on my bike, so maybe I'll just go for a swim. So I'd go for a swim. If the bike generally would happen at the weekends, that's where you'd have the long period of time. The running you'd sort of fit in where you want to. The running you could do in the dark, so that was a huge advantage straight out. But I use there's an analogy by an English chef called Gordon Ramsay where it was like, never fear the rain, never fear the storm, learn to dance in the rain. I think that's the right way of doing it. And that was what it was. I just did as much as I could. I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to learn to know that I can do all these disciplines however I want to. And even with all the other races I've done since then, one thing I do 6 weeks beforehand is, certainly with an Ironman, is on the Saturday morning, I set out and I have to cover the full Ironman distance by midnight on Sunday night. Okay, so whether I do a kilometre swim, 10k bike ride, 2k run, and I just keep repeating that, or if I do all the bike in one go and then half the run and then the following day the other half the run, just so that when I'm on that start line of that race, I know, there'll be no one there, but I know that 48 hours later, unless there's an accident, I'll be finished.
Yeah.
I would have missed the cutoff and everything, but that wasn't the point. It was just psychologically for me, I knew that I was in good enough shape to do that. And if I wasn't, I still had 6 weeks to sort it out. But yeah, I just did whatever I could, whenever I could, and whatever I felt like.
Yeah.
I mean, almost every triathlete is a runner who gets a knee problem, who starts bike cycling, enjoys cycling, and decides to throw the swim on at the beginning. And that's why the swim is always, or usually always, people's weak point.
Yeah, I love that quote by Gordon Ramsay. It's actually the only quote I've actually heard that doesn't have a profanity in it. Also, too, just training. Is it lonely?
Again, storybooks helped me. I didn't find it lonely. You know, I was 20. I was in my early 20s. You're so motivated. The second I signed up for it, I had a goal. It slowly became my identity. I was one of the few, and I'm probably going to offend people here, I was one of the few personal trainers that was actually doing some exercise that was relevant to an actual target, not just looking good. So it was part of who I was. And like I said, you know, a lot of my friends had sort of fallen by the wayside because they were doing extracurricular things, and I was ginger, so I was very single. I was working by myself. I was always very comfortable with being by myself, and occasionally people would cycle with me. They'd beat me, so I wouldn't invite them back again. Occasionally I'd swim with people, I'd beat them, so they'd come back every day. It was just a cycle that I got into, and I was very lucky. You know, I was personal training at a sports club that had a swimming pool. It was near a place called Richmond Park, which is like Centennial Park in Sydney. So I had this playground on my doorstep. I just went from one step to the next.
I've spoken to a lot of swimmers, Olympic swimmers as well, and they say the hardest thing is the training, just looking at that black line, and it's almost like they've got to put this, like a music or something in their head just to keep doing. I don't know how, it must be the hardest discipline to do.
The problem with them is they're intelligent. I jump in the water, nothing. Absolutely nothing. You could put a shark there, nothing. I follow the black. I'm like I used to have stones at the end and move the stones across because I couldn't remember where I was lengthwise, just doing one length. It's like, well, is that 6? Is that 7? Is that 8? Is that 9? And, you know, I realized very quickly that very early on I did like 100 lengths very, very quickly and realized I must have gone like 11, 92, 93, 94, and these were 25-meter pools. They weren't 50. I mean, it's jumping a little bit, but when I first got to Australia, and I found myself in a 50-meter swimming pool. I'd done a little bit in the before in a 90-meter pool, but this was like just an everyday swimming pool. And I was knackered halfway through the length because normally I get to 25 meters and I turn around and come back again. So you just find your groove. And
how did you go on that first event? Do you remember your time?
In the Ironman, for the whole race, it was 12 hours 57 minutes, and I want to say
I got it here,
42 seconds, something like that.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
God, I think you'd remember your first one.
I know. Yeah. Again, not much going on.
it was being sunburned. You had more events followed, France, Switzerland, and also in the UK. Did it all of a sudden start to become addictive?
It became addictive, for sure. It became my identity.
And also for London marathons.
Yeah, so the London Marathon was always a sort of staple. It was when you could get in really quite easily. There was one time where I didn't get in and I was really frustrated. It was still under being sponsored by Flora, which is the sort of butter. And the year before I'd done it. So I decided, well, if I go 200 meters up from the start line in my running kit, but with my casual clothes over the top, once the masses ran past, and we're talking 50,000 people, if I take my shirt and shorts and trousers or pants off, I could then just filter into the race, and off I went. So yeah, I did do 4, 5, 6 London marathons.
You're fast becoming
only a couple of them.
You're fast becoming the UK's Forrest Gump.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was literally like that.
Run across England.
yeah. It's true. It's true. I used to cycle home from university. I really was, and I loved it, and it became, if I went to a wedding or someone's wedding or something, it'd be like, oh, this is Rich. He does Ironman. It became your identity.
Yeah.
And then also because I was doing sports stuff and I was single, I would. I've said that way too many times now. I'm believing it myself. I would literally say, oh, you know what? I fancy going to Zurich. So I'd find out when the Ironman was on, and that would be my excuse to go.
Yeah.
So I'd go to Zurich for a week. I'd turn up on the Friday, race on the Sunday, and then I'd have 5 days to myself. And then slowly but surely, friends were starting to think, oh, you know what? I fancy a week in Zurich, so they'd come with me.
Yeah.
And I ended up with my own little sort of core cheerleaders, and it was great.
Beautiful. And just when you think you couldn't do any more, a double Ironman, like to me and to most people, that sounds absolutely shit house.
Yeah.
You got excited.
Yeah, 100%. So you do an Ironman and you think this is great, and then you do another one, and your times are getting lower and lower and lower, but all of a sudden everyone else's times are getting lower and lower, and you think, well, I'm never going to be where I want to be. I wonder if there's anything longer. So I found this article on a double Ironman. So that's a 7.4 kilometer swim, a 360 kilometer bike ride, and an 85 kilometer run. And again, I thought, oh, okay.
Which is pretty much like back-to-back marathons, isn't it?
Yeah, it is back-to-back marathons. But that's, that's after already doing 15 hours of cycling and swimming beforehand. The marathons was kind of, I'll figure that out when I get there.
You weren't on performance-enhancing drugs, were you?
No, not at all. No, not at all.
You did say you loved Lance Armstrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to. You know what? I tried to sell all my books and everything from him just after that whole thing. Couldn't sell any of them. Yeah. That was a disaster. No, I certainly wasn't doing enhancing in drugs. I probably should have, but I didn't. And
I'm only joking.
No. It's. I was mental at that point, so yeah, but I didn't.
The event in Virginia, USA.
Yeah.
What was that like? It was like, how much preparation you put into that?
So I trained for a year for that. So I signed up in October 2006 when I found out about it, and it was in October 2007. It's quite potent you bring it up because my idol at that time was a boxer called Ricky Hatton.
Yes.
He was an English boxer who unfortunately was found unresponsive last night. So he
Didn't
was.
know that.
Oh, okay. So
Wow.
yeah. So he was. It was his at the time when he was boxing Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
Manny Pacquiao and whatever. And so, yeah, he was a big inspiration to me at that time. And I just, again, trained. I did upgrade to a bigger swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
There's a swimming pool in Tooting, which is in southwest London, which is the longest open-air swimming pool in Europe. It's about 94, 95 metres, I think it is. And it hasn't got chlorine in, so you can wear a wetsuit. And yeah, the whole thing just inspired me. But I had to... I had to look at things again a little bit differently because I couldn't dedicate the time that I needed to do that in any one chunk. So I thought, you know what? one of the hardest parts of it, or one of the most important parts, is the foundation. So swim. Had to swim the whole time. So I did a lot of swimming. Then the cycling, I did do a lot of cycling, but I didn't do many massive rides. I did slightly shorter rides, but then I always tried to run 10K after I'd finished the bike. So if I did like a 50K bike ride, I'd do a 10K run afterwards. If I did a 100K bike ride, I'd do a 10K run afterwards. So I never actually focused specifically on the bike or specifically on the run. I just kind of let them organically grow. Turned out it wasn't possibly the right strategy, but that was how I had to do it. I had a full-time job, you know, like I had to keep working. These things cost money, and you know, I couldn't find anyone to go with me. So my mum came out with me because, you know, she thought I was crazy, but she didn't really quite understand what I was doing, but wanted to support me. And I remember, I haven't even told Tony this. I remember being on the aeroplane to America, and I'd written her a letter. I said, "Mum, read this on the aeroplane, just so you know where I'm at with this." I said, "You know, you supporting me has been absolutely fantastic. You know, love you to bits, etc., etc." I said, "But I'm not coming back unless I'm physically here or I'm in a box. Do not pull me out because you're feeling sorry for your little dummy son who's decided to do this stupid thing." I said, "You know, I've trained hard enough for this. I have everything in place. I need to see this through." And so that was how that approached. And I think once she knew that, it was kind of like, okay, I've come along to go for the ride. I'm not mum anymore. I'm having to actually, you know, he's calling the shots here, but he's got the decency to tell me that at some point. Can I swear on here?
Yeah.
At some point, I will probably tell her to fuck off, but I don't mean it. But I do mean it, and she needs to decide when I mean it and when I don't mean it. I just trained and trained and trained.
Just with that, there was 24 other competitors.
Yeah.
But you thought you'd missed it.
Yes. So, because of my naivety on the website, I thought I was the top dog. I thought, I'm doing the double. This is going to be great. Completely ignored everything else. So I turned up for race registration on the Thursday to start on the Friday. And on the Thursday, everyone was going round. They were already doing their bike leg at that point because it was mid-afternoon. And this feeling of just absolute sheer dread of, I've missed this. I've missed the start. I've trained my absolute backside off. Not only have I brought my mother here.
Yeah, mum's come.
She's paid for her trip. And I've now turned up a day late. And I told everyone back in England, there was newspaper articles about me. Like I was building a bit of momentum, and I'd missed the start. And I was like, oh no, this is horrific. And little did I know that had I actually scrolled a bit further down the website, I would have seen there was a triple Ironman. And so I was in a very unique situation that at the start of the double Ironman, regardless of whether I finished it, I already knew where I was going to be 365 days later. But I knew that I couldn't justify being there if I didn't finish this one, because it was a natural progression. So yeah, that was probably the kick up the backside I probably needed. Yeah. Just to make sure, right, do not screw this up. You've got to do this right.
You came third in the double Ironman. Your mind would have been all over the place doing that. Is it real mind games while it's going?
No, because the klaxon goes off, nothing. Nothing at all. In fact, I remember thinking, isn't this great? No mobile phone, no one to bother me. I can just get on and do what I enjoy. The hard thing, and this is such a stupid thing to say, but the hard thing is with the double is it's not quite long enough to worry too much about sleep, because the time frame's not quite there. I think it was 40 hours that you had to do it. And then you were never going to be quite tired enough to really need a sleep to then comfortably sleep, knowing that you could do the next little bit. So it was a bit of a not a catch-22, but it was just a little bit juggling the balls to see which way you wanted to go. You'd have a sleep if you were having a really bad race and needed a reset, but if you were going okay, you would go for it.
Now the triple Ironman.
Yeah.
My God, Richard, I'm glad there's not a quadruple.
Oh, there is. There's a quint. That's 10.
That's for the next podcast.
Yeah.
That's for the next podcast.
The thing about the quint, which really upsets me, is the main one's in Mexico. It's done in a 50-meter pool, and the bike is on a 1 kilometer back and forth, and then you run the same thing. I'm mental, but I'm not that mental. There's no way I can do that.
just the triple one. It's 11.4 kilometres swimming, 540 kilometres bike riding, 126.6 kilometre run, and it has to be done in 60 hours.
Yeah.
We got some video of that.
What's your point?
What's your point?
Yeah.
I just find one of you just worried about just finishing, or you're worried about the time. You know,
finishing.
I mean, there's
sunny day down here in Lake Anna State Park, and Richie is precisely 3 hours 5 minutes into his swim, coming towards the end, I suspect. He's probably got a couple of laps to go, and he's looking pretty good so far. So far, so good.
It's great that you've actually got your own commentator as well.
It's a beautiful day here at the park, and Richie.
You forget that he hasn't got the adrenaline going through him.
5 minutes.
So 2 days
into his
staying awake is hard if you've got
he's had his first
no
eating
adrenaline.
break on the bike, and he's doing pretty well. Keep it going, mate.
Absolutely not sound, absolutely fucked.
What did you say?
I'm stuffed.
Hey, you can't be stuffed. You got a nice tasty pasta there, and you've got to go out and have another bike.
And then 3 marathons.
Well,
that's immaterial, really.
So you're feeling pretty good about it then?
Can't wait.
Really? You look at the bubble of enthusiasm there, mate.
Yeah. Explain why I do this again?
I don't know, you have to ask yourself that.
Because you've nothing better to do this weekend.
I think you better answer your own question.
You look like you're in a whole world of pain there.
As you can see,
I hadn't realised how cold it would get as I got so tired. So I'm wearing my tracksuit bottoms with duct tape to stop it getting catching in the pedals.
His marathon runs and doing really well, looking pretty good, looking strong. Everyone keeps asking about him, saying he's doing really well.
I shouldn't have been there. I was too young.
And we're with you every step of the way.
Well, just getting back to what you were eating, the race begins. I just want to point out your dietary plan for this race. Baguettes, noodles, flat Coke, lolly snakes, pizza and Chinese takeaway. Now, that's a food of champions if I've never
100%. I can tell you right now that the reason that 90%, I'd say, if not higher, of endurance athletes do what they do is because they love eating cake. And it gives him an excuse to do it. Okay. When you interviewed Tony, he would have told you about his food on his boat. I'm pretty sure he just went for a 160-day buffet. I'm pretty sure.
Well, too, if you actually put a kebab in that, it just sounds like one of Dave and I's nights out. Really,
it's one of those funny ones. It's more about what you crave. So I used to get a lot of stick in the Ironman because I used to have a baguette in my back pocket. So the baguette would have butter, it would have salami, and it would have some sort of chutney or something in there. Everyone else would be with their gels, with their salt tablets and everything else, and I'd be there with something that I craved. And the reason being was that it had the fats, it had the proteins, it had the carbs, it had everything I wanted, and I wanted to eat it. The first day that I was doing the triple, I stuck to my guns completely. And then I had a bowel movement that suggested I was perhaps having a bit too much sugar and that kind of stuff. And so I turned to my mum and said, I need some decent food here. I need something that is stodgy, that I want, that is great. And so in came pizza and a Chinese takeaway. And I can tell you right now, when you're feeling down and you get something like that, your morale just lifts up like crazy. And it was the best thing that could have happened.
But you also had a bit of a road rage incident. You threw your bike into the bushes.
Yes, so there was,
Twice, wasn't it?
Yeah, twice the bike got thrown in the bushes. So the the first time
That's not a good strategy, I don't think.
No, the first time nothing happened. Like literally nothing happened. I literally just got off the bike and threw it in the bushes. The second time I dropped a bottle of water, and it just frustrated me. The third thing that happened was all the trees were moving and everything else in the nighttime, and I was hallucinating. Then my mum appeared on like a broomstick. And she wasn't my crew for this, obviously, but I was kind of like,
That'll do it.
That could be real life. Like the trees moving, that's all that. But I remember getting really upset with my my crew, Julian, who during the run phase, I said, mate, can you put some water on the course? I think it was. He said, yep, no worries, I'll do it. And then I hadn't appreciated he'd put it on the ground, but he hadn't put it on the ground standing upright. He put it on the side. Well, I couldn't bend over because my legs were so rigid because they were so sore, they were so tired. And I remember coming down and having a massive go at him, being like, mate, you can't do that. Like, I'm trying to do this and you're just taking the piss. This is stupid. And then I walked away thinking, you absolute arsehole. Like, to me, to myself, you know, this guy's come out to help me and I've just given him a mouthful for doing nothing. But that was, I was on a cliff edge the whole time. And when I crossed the finish line, I was so delighted that I crossed the finish line and then I just burst out into tears. It was just the sheer relief of the whole thing.
Well, all I want to say is please don't drop that water because I don't want you throwing the microphone across the room.
Yeah.
52 hours and 40 minutes.
42 hours.
Oh, sorry. Oh, 42 hours,
Yeah,
yes.
42 hours.
Yep.
Yeah, so
You happy with that?
Yeah, I came out the water. I did a really great swim, got horrifically seasick for the first time ever, which I should have realised was going to be the start of something. Came out the water really quite well. I think I was second actually. And then I had the most awful bike. The bike was just, I was hoping it'd take me 24 hours. It took me 26 hours. It was a disaster. And then I was pretty much almost dead last, if not dead last at that point. And then came back onto the run. And the run I was always quite good at. I was just a plodder. I knew very quickly that if I was wanting to eat, as long as I kept moving forward, and this was actually a Dean thing from much earlier, every step forward was a step closer to the finish line. So I was constantly moving, whereas other people were stopping and actually sitting down and having some food, and that would have been a nightmare for me.
Tired of missing out on the best properties? Stop searching, start winning. At Optimum Buyers Agency, we work for you, not the seller. We negotiate harder, we move faster, we find the homes others don't. Off-market deals, smart strategy, real results. Whether it's your first home or your forever home, we make it happen. Optimum Buyers Agency, your edge in a competitive market. When I was reading up your story about this part, it actually gave me a flashback when I was growing up as a kid. Did you ever hear of a bloke called Cliff Young?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, we're going to go into him a bit here. Here he is here. This was 1983 here in Australia. He was 61 years old, potato farmer. He became, a folk hero, winning the Sydney to Melbourne ultramarathon, 50 kilometres ahead of the world's best. Now, he stopped the nation doing it. Newspapers, television, radio, they were transfixed. He used to train on his farm, on a farm he lived with his mum, in gumboots. Now, he did it by beating these guys, and legend has it, unintentional, some might say underhanded. There was a gentleman's agreement that the runners would sleep until dawn before setting off. But on the first night, apparently Cliff's masseur set the alarm clock incorrectly at 2 a.m. Cliff gets up, sets off, and he finds himself 20 kilometres in front before the rest of them sets off, and then he just doesn't stop until the end of the race and wins it.
Yeah, I didn't know that story until I came to Australia. I mean, he's your epitome of, with ultra distance stuff, it's the snail that wins the race. Normally, it's this person that can just keep on going and going and going and going. And my running style is very similar to his. Like it's like I call it the truffle shuffle. But it's just Yeah, it's
well,
just
in that
slow and
race,
steady.
I'm pretty sure he beat a Greek who finished on the podium at the Olympics in the marathon.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. But so that's it's interesting you say that. They had if a marathon runner runs 100 meters, their pace for that 100 meters will probably be roughly the same as what they cover 100 meters in the marathon. They had an Ironman triathlete. They got him quite recently, the world champ, to run a marathon without doing the bike and the swim beforehand, and he was slower. So you become so conditioned for that one particular thing that you don't know any difference. So Cliff could have got lucky in that the overall race could have been quite slow.
Yeah.
But it just suited him for going super long.
Yeah.
The weather conditions, I think the weather was awful on that day. I mean, he's a potato farmer.
Yeah.
He would have thrived in that. Whereas we all would have been, our nipples would have been chafing and everything else and complaining. And again, he would have, going back to the food thing with the triple, he would have stuck with his own normal potato smoothie, I'm guessing. Whereas everyone else would have had all these sports gels and everything else, and they're great, but over a long distance stuff, it gets boring.
Yeah.
And it plays havoc with your mind.
Then back to you. It was time to try Atlantic Ocean rowing.
Yes.
As you do. It goes back to those two Kiwis that you have, that you had to advertise for the position to go. Was that tough to get someone else that wanted to do this with you?
Yeah, so initially, because I was a sucker for it, I wanted to do the Indian Ocean, but I couldn't find anybody. Every time I approached people in the UK, because I was still in the UK at this point, they would be like, where's the Indian Ocean? And I'd say Perth to Mauritius, and they wouldn't quite understand it. There's also no shipping lanes, so I couldn't really sell it to my family that I was going to go and do this. So I did the Atlantic. I decided to change to the Atlantic. It was a much easier sell to sponsors and whatnot. And I put an email out to every single person I knew. And I just said, listen, this is 2008. And I said, listen, I'm doing this. I'll do it as a solo if I have to, but I don't want to. Is anybody interested? At least just for a chat. Like, is anybody interested? And I got an email back about 3 weeks later. This was just before Christmas, so it was after Christmas. I got an email back from a guy that was 6 years above me at university. And I only knew him because he was a sports coordinator at the uni. And I found myself being captain of, or being part of the cricket team. And he emailed me back. And I'm so good at keeping digital clutter, but I haven't got this email reply. It was just literally like, hello, mate, you've ruined my Christmas. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. Hey, Barnsley, how are you? And he said...
That was Tom Barnes.
Tom Barnes, yeah.
Yeah.
And he just said, I can't stop thinking about this rowing. And I knew straight away that the second he said, I can't stop thinking about this rowing, that he was the person for it. Because I didn't want someone who liked the idea. I wanted someone that was transfixed in it. And he went through a very difficult interview process of one person. I debated with my team of me whether he should get the gig, and thankfully he did.
But the biggest problem out of it I saw was the fact that either of you had never rowed before.
Yeah, that was a minor detail. And also, you're about to do that, and you want to be slightly chunky around the edges. You want to be strong. And
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, I just done a triathlon, a long distance triathlon that I was flaky. I was very thin and small in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, neither of us rowed. Neither of us had any money. We didn't know each other, which actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise. And the other thing that you don't sort of think about is that he was 6'4", 6'3". I was just 6 foot on a good day back then. And the cabins are quite small. So you don't really want to be with someone massive. But it was a team that we ended up working out really well. He was an absolute stiffler, and he won't mind me saying this, and if he does, it doesn't matter. He was an absolute stiffler for spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff, and was absolutely meticulous about doing it. I was a little bit more blasé about it, but he was the exact balance that I needed for me. And I was the exact balance that he needed.
I was going to say, a lot of sponsors on there, but how much does it cost to get a boat like that?
So it costs about 200,000. Well, sorry, the whole event is about $200,000. The boat itself is about $60,000.
Yeah.
What's really hard to get your head around is that boat is designed for crossing an ocean, right? But to get to the start line, it has to be shipped there. To get back from the finish line, it has to get shipped back. These little things are what really costs a lot of the money. We were really meticulous. We had a lot of very small sponsors. It was 2008, 2009. It was during the global financial crisis. No businesses had money. We knew they had products. And so we literally listed all the products that we needed. And, you can see, I don't want to distinguish too many of them, but you can see Toshiba. Well, we needed a laptop. They gave us a laptop. Quaker Oats, we needed oats. We needed food. So they gave us that. So there's lots of little sponsors
All your
on there.
necessities were on those
Absolutely
stickers.
everything. So there was underneath the life raft in the middle, which was not the ideal position at all, but we had to put it there just for get through scrutineering. Underneath that was something like 75 litres of fresh water in ballast to make the boat self-right itself. That was our emergency rations. Otherwise, we had a desalinator that changes salt water to drinkable salt water. Everything was on board. It makes me laugh nowadays just how simple it was, because, you hear rowers that row oceans now, and some of them have failed recently because their auto helm wasn't working. They didn't have enough power. We were all hand steering back then, and this was only 15 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. On that picture, actually, you can see the curve on my spine is still there, and that was officially normal.
Just doing the rowing the Atlantic. I mean, what are the risks? I mean, there's obvious ones.
It's death. That's the main one.
Yeah. So what happened? So take for example, one of you died halfway across. What happened?
Officially during the rules, because it's actually part of a race, you're meant to keep the body on board until a passing boat, whether it be a tanker or something, comes and rescues you. I said to Tom, in a very brutal conversation with him, I think his family were there, I think my family were there, I can't quite remember, but we had a very brutal conversation of, I'm really sorry, but if you have a heart attack in a cabin that gets to 120 degrees during the daytime, I am not lying beside you. It's not happening, and I don't expect you to do it to me, because this will be an adventure, and if that happens, this is going to be an adventure that will scar us for the rest of our lives regardless. We don't need that extra scar by knowing that we've been, next to a decomposing body. So we would put some weights on the legs and just slowly put you over the edge, and that was that. And, we had to have that conversation, and it would have been so naive not to. I mean, it's a 6,500 kilometre route. It goes from Africa to America. The first boat is going to be probably in 50 odd days. The last boat is going to be in 150 days. We're not going to see another rowing boat. We're not going to see anybody out there. We're completely self-sufficient. And even on the days that I might hate you, we still have to be there for each other. And it's very interesting. All the other crews knew each other very, very well. We didn't, and we are the only crew that are still talking.
Wow.
So we actually learned about stuff. I have no interest in soccer. He's a massive soccer player. He taught me everything about soccer. Yeah. He hated cricket. I bored him senselessly with cricket.
That actually would.
Yeah.
But in saying that, was the other crews, was it two-man crews, or was there more people?
There was solo crews.
Yep.
There was pairs. There was quads, there was a 5, and there was a couple of 12-man crews.
So how did it work for you guys? Was it a case of one man on, one man off?
So the way that an ocean rowing boat works is that it's much more efficient if you keep moving, even if it's slow, keep moving forward. So we did 2 hours on, 2 hours off, which is sort of seen as the recognised way of doing it. We looked at that very much from a practical point of view, in terms of, okay, let's just keep the boat moving forward, and then slowly but surely it became very evident. But it's also really nice to have the cabin to yourself. And so it became very important that we kept that going. And neither of us, whether we had good rows, bad rows, good shifts, bad shifts, whatever it might be, neither of us were ever late for a shift, and we never finished early for a shift.
Tell us about the scoring system out of 100?
Oh, okay, yes. So with a lot of stuff that I do, and I still do it now, we realised that, because we were both working full-time, that there was an awful lot of topics that we had to cover. We had to do sponsorship, medical stuff, training, whatever it is. And it only worked if we were both present. And when I say present, not physically, I mean mentally. So we had a little score system of 100. And we decided that regardless of what happens, if we're going to talk about medical stuff, we had to have a score of 100. So if Tom had a really big day at work, he might turn in with, I can only give you 20 today, mate. Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, well, that's fine. I haven't worked today. I can give 80, 90, 100 if I have to. We've got 100 points. Let's do this. If we both have rubbish days at work and he comes in and says, oh, mate, I can only give you 30. And I'm like, well, I'm the same. I can only give you 30. Yeah. We would then literally find a topic that still had to be done that we could both give enough to 100. So it might be, let's talk about food, because then we can snack on our snack packs whilst we're preparing our snack packs. Yep. Great. And so that day we would do food rather than some mundane thing of what we were doing. And I still use it with my wife today, on the often scenario when she comes in and she can't give me 100%. I have to pick up the pieces.
But it's a little similar to Dave and I. I mean, most of the time he's just, I'm going to do the 90%. I said, okay, I'll do the 10.
Yeah.
January 4, 2010, you set off to Antigua with 23 other boats.
Yeah.
There are a few hairy moments, obviously, big waves, nearly run over by tankers. I think you've got some vision of you rowing.
So now bearing in mind with this was a very calm day, because I had to balance my camera on the top of the cabin so you could see me. So going back to the Ironman, where naivety is your biggest asset.
Yeah.
Right. I'd never been to the ocean before. We had 10 one-hour lessons before we went out and did this, because rowing is actually the least important part of the whole thing. It's all about the preparation, having the right boat and all that kind of stuff. So there was one day quite early on where the very choppy seas, and actually the smaller waves that came in random directions were the hardest ones. If you saw a big wave coming, it wasn't a problem, but it was pitch black, and I found the nights really difficult, because if it was cloudy, you couldn't have any reference point of where the sky finished and the ocean started. And it was phenomenally choppy and everything else. And then suddenly the front of the boat, or the back of the boat, I should say, started to lift. Now, the reason I get confused on that is because we're going that way, but I'm facing this way. So you're doing everything in reverse.
Yeah.
So the cabin this side of facing me now slowly started to come up and up and up and up and up. And we got to, I don't know what the flipping point actually is, but it got very, very close to that before we were engrossed with the white water from the wave kind of breaking over itself. Absolutely swamped. Came scooting down the front of the wave. Tom came bolting out of the cabin, deer in a headlight kind of eyes thinking, what the hell was that type thing? And it was the first thing that, if I'd been an ocean-going sailor, whatever it might be, and I knew what that meant, I probably would have cracked.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, so this is what we're dealing with, is it?
Yeah.
Is this how it's going to go? So that was very early on. That probably happened within the first couple of weeks of being out at the ocean. The race wasn't allowed to start unless you had 3 relatively clear weather days. Not completely, but relatively clear weather days. You're such a small boat. I mean, this was a 23-foot ocean rowing boat. It wasn't Tony's round the world boat that had a kettle and everything else in it, and a library and all sorts of other things.
Yeah, fruit bread.
Yeah, So
but also tell us about you thought it was raining at one point, but
Yes.
it wasn't rain.
So you can hear on the video there's some music going on. I used to at night time, so the other person could sleep, listen to headphones, and it was beautiful, clear sky, and the stars were amazing, and moon was out. It was just brilliant, and I kept getting sprayed by rain. What's this? What's going on? And it was also really, really smelly rain, like disgustingly smelly rain. And I had no idea what was going on about it. Again, didn't know anything about the animals, anything like that. Anyway, as dawn eventually broke, we were being followed by a pod of whales. And as dawn broke, that was our time to be like, right, headphones out. The other person needs to be awake. Turn the music on. And in that split second of being quiet, I heard this. And
so it's coming out of the blowhole.
And it came out of the blowhole. That's all it was.
So you're getting.
So we were getting a pod of whales, but because it was pitch black, I couldn't see it. And I was just getting sprayed by
You're
this
getting covered in whale snot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really fine rain, and it's so.
This wasn't in the brochure.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, looking back at it, it's ridiculous. I mean, I remember on a similar night, very similar to this, when you put the oil in the water, you get the little phosphorus, the little algae that lights up like little fairy lights. So you have beautiful clear sky, diamonds just falling down on you because the stars are just amazing, shooting stars, whatever else. Then your oars are going in the water and you're pushing away so you can see where you've come from, not where you're going. And we just had this glistening. It reminded me, I don't even think it's a scene, but it reminded me of like Winnie the Pooh in a rowing boat, and you just see the little trail going through. Like it was beautiful.
You know what? I just want to take this home, this vision home with me. I'm just going to sit in my lounge room. I feel like you're just rowing me to the
exactly. Yeah. In fact, this kind of weather was the worst. It was like treacle. You wanted a little bit of swell. Everyone comments on my ginger beard. I look a bit like Prince Harry, I think.
Well, it's not like Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
Also,
Well played.
you were hallucinating at one point, which was a bit scary.
So hallucinating. So night times, the way the shift patterns worked meant that for a lot of the time, I was always on the graveyard shift from 2 till 4, and there's two stories that go along with this actually. I was on the oars and I'd fallen asleep, not realizing I'd fallen asleep. It was quite early on in my shift, so I had put the oars away. I had stopped rowing, sat on the side of the boat, and went to get up to go on the side of the dock. This is what it would have looked like from the side. The second my feet hit the water, I just got that kind of cold electric shock and woke up straight away. And it had turned out I was hallucinating. I'd put the oars away. I thought I was finished, so I was on the side. Now, what was so key about it was that I wasn't tethered to the boat. I can tell you right now, after that happened, I was the whole time. And it was quite early on in my shift. So had I slipped into the water, Tom probably wouldn't have known for a good hour and 40 minutes, and that would have been game over.
That would have saved him having to weight you down.
Yeah, exactly. I'd still be crying. That was crazy.
And you guys finished in 72 days, 8 hours and 44 minutes and 8 seconds.
Yeah.
That 8 seconds is important to you, isn't it?
Very.
What was it like seeing the finish line?
It was funny.
That was 6 out of 23 boats too.
Yeah, so we dropped right the way back quite early on. And then I said to Tom, listen, mate, this is ridiculous. We're 6 foot, we're young, we're strong. Why are we taking so long here? We've got to push this on. So we ended up having a proper chat, saying what we were going to do and making up real ground up the fleet. And so we finished at 6th place. And finishing was a funny one. You smelt the land before you saw it. I'd always been told that was going to happen, but I'd never appreciated it did. So you smell the land first, and then you see the land. And then, of course, once you've got a reference point, you then realise how slow you're going. So you see the land, think, great, we're going to be there in a minute, and it takes ages. So that was the first downer. And then all of a sudden, we crossed the finish line, and you've crossed the finish line about 1 kilometre out to sea. And you go, yay. What do we do now?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got to row another kilometre. So you don't actually have 1 kilometre of rowing, not knowing what to expect around the corner. And it was an unbelievable sense of achievement. And then on top of that, an absolute fear of, shit, this is 12, 15 years of my life. What do I do now?
I was just about to say that. I mean, I suppose that finish line sort of rounded it out to where you were on that rock wall 12 and a half years earlier. Yeah. And I suppose completing that. And just what you just told us, I mean, there was a process, there was a procedure to get to that point. You know, the Ironmans, the marathons, all that sort of stuff. And I suppose in a way, it's most similar situations after completing a goal is that sense of emptiness where you're lost going, oh, it's done now.
Yeah. I remember getting home and a friend of mine said to me very quickly, right, no more rowing chat. That's it. And I was thinking, 48 hours ago, I just crossed the finish line. What? Is everyone that bored of it? Yep, we're all bored of it. We've all followed your little dot on the ocean. Great, la-di-la, you've done it. And that's it. We don't want anything more. And it was the start of the breakdown of a couple of friendships as well, because nothing felt quite good enough thereafter. Yeah. And I would probably have been quite difficult to have been around, because I needed a purpose. I don't care what anybody says. Anybody that has this kind of mindset, however big and small, they need to have the next project. I literally yesterday, I started my kids' cubby house, and I'm so excited because it's something to then do, Yeah. So you've got to have that little spark, and it doesn't matter what it is.
This isn't just a gym, it's where limits get broken. A place where community comes together, sweat turns into strength, and every drop is progress. No excuses, no egos, just results. Join Fitstop Newcastle today, a start to a better you.
Well, you did something different in 2012. You moved to Australia. Was that a hard decision for you?
So, with all my sport, I ran my own personal training studio, and it was in the basement of a friend of mine's apartment, a friend of mine's house, and I would look after his garden as a sort of paying rent. And I knew I could never sell that. I knew I could never move on and have someone else take my place, because it was purely an arrangement based on trust. But every time I did this sports stuff and thought I'd go off and do something different, I kept coming back to it. And I knew I did the rowing. I was skint at the end of the rowing, and I went straight back into that job. And I thought, you know what? I'm on the top step of a one-step ladder. Like I need to change this up. And Australia, you have to be in Australia by the time you're 30 to get a work visa if you're from the UK. New Zealand's 32 and Canada, I think, is 35. So everyone comes to Australia with the thing as, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll go to New Zealand. If it doesn't work out, I'll go to Canada. And we all get stuck in Australia. Not because it's the best. I think because we feel sorry for you guys. But that's what happened. So I came to Australia, and I got stuck in Australia, and thank God I did.
Richard, I want you deported. You met your lovely wife Liz, and also your two children, Maddie and Ella, the love of your lives. But I want to go to this. I got some random pics, David, and I want you to just explain.
I haven't seen these, so I don't know what you're going to put up.
What's this?
Oh, that is the Sydney Marathon. It's now one of the 7th majors of the marathon thing. And back in the day, they had a very good marketing team. They said, it's amazing. The crowds are going to be fantastic. It's going to be brilliant. So I ran the marathon with a friend of mine. And I said, this is your first one. I'll dress up, and then your family can see you. There was no one on the course, and I ran like that. So I just looked like an absolute numbnut. But marathons, I was never...
I tell you what, you look pretty ripped then.
Yeah, I was ripped.
Yeah, I was.
On. You can't see the legs though. I just sort of... marathons, I was never a particularly fast marathon runner. I broke 4 hours like once or twice. And so I used to make them fun, and I can tell you right now, if you put your name on the race number, or you wear an outfit, the amount of people that go, "Come on, Captain America! Come on this! Come on that!" Like, it's just great. And then all of a sudden, when the kids are handing out snacks and whatever, they want to give it to you, not to the just Joe Blog that's running. And so that's what I used to do.
Obviously, the Iron Man suit wasn't available that day.
No.
Pick number 2. Now, what's going on here? You look like the red-headed version of Tom Hanks in Castaway.
Hanks, yeah, I look hot, don't I? That was the day. That was the evening I got off the rowing boat. So you can see how skinny my legs are with absolutely zero definition. And actually, on this picture, you can see a slight curvature. My head is not in line with my legs; it's slightly off. and that's just a slight lateral sclerosis curve. So it was still there, but yeah, there was not much to me. I completely wasted away. I got really stressed on the rowing boat. So Tom didn't lose a whole lot of weight. I lost heaps.
All I say is I hope you're not using that picture for your personal training website.
No, yeah. I think it looks like gangster.
And one more? What is this?
Yes. So that is in... Where did you find that picture? That is in Austria. So before I came to Australia, I decided to do a little bit of traveling around Europe for a while. And that was in Austria. And that was the most beautiful lake.
The colour
yeah,
of that
it's that colour because of the glacier. My feet are not in the water because it was so cold. I'm not very good with cold water. But that was just me looking out on the ocean, and I went traveling with a couple of friends. And in fact, one of the guys that I went with was the Triple Ironman crew person, and it was just... It was so peaceful. I'd go there in a heartbeat. Austria is a place to go.
The only other colour I've seen water like that is actually in Chicago.
When they dye...
It's like an aqua.
Yeah.
I think it was even more lighter than that.
Yeah.
I've never seen like it. Now, in 2015, you couldn't help yourself. You did your second Triple Ironman.
Yes.
But your dad passed away just months before.
Yes.
Was that event more about healing your mind?
No, that was a complete self-worth thing. So I moved to Australia in 2012. In 2014, I got the phone call saying Dad was very sick and he wanted actually me to help him be his carer, because he'd had a carer for a while from sores on his bottom and things. So I went back and looked after him, and then once he passed away, we decided to renovate the house before we sold it, and then me and the rest of the family were going to do whatever we wanted to do. And I thought, well, I wonder if you can do a Triple Ironman around an everyday job. So I never allowed myself to train more than 2 hours a day, except at weekends where I do 4 or 5 hours if I wanted to. And I always had to have one day off, because I thought if I had a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job, maybe that was realistic. And I just wanted to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
The second I got in the water in Virginia, because it was the same place, I was a bit over it, if I'm completely honest. But again, it was a self-worth to see what I was capable of doing. Yeah. Because at that point, I was 33, 34, and I was getting close to being the age that I should have been to be doing those things. Whereas when I was in 2008, when I was 25, I was way too young. I shouldn't have been there. I should have been chasing girls and nightclubs or whatever. That was more of a journey for myself. I didn't have a support crew. I went over there completely by myself, and I just took my time, and I plodded, and I had hissy fits for no reason apart from to myself. I didn't get pizza. I didn't get Chinese takeaway. It rained at the worst possible time when I was tired and ratty. But it was just an experience I wanted to try.
Well, another experience is a little bit harder than building a cubby house. You purchased 30 acres of land in Warranella in 2016. 4 years later, you opened up the Challenge Chaser Retreat.
Yeah.
Was that
is there a picture of that?
I think we have.
Oh, there you go.
Or there's
Yeah, so that's my dog Colin as well. That's my wife. So when
I hope so.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. When we sold our family home, I got to Sydney with a little bit of money in my back pocket, thinking I could buy whatever I wanted, and I couldn't buy a garage. It was so expensive.
Yeah.
And I literally turned to Liz and I said, "Listen, we have this money. We can either buy an apartment in Sydney, be mortgaged up to the eyeballs, and live that lifestyle, or do you fancy moving to the country? I've had this idea of doing a glamping retreat to do fitness camps. I think we can do it with a small little mortgage. Do you want to give it a go?" And we had no dependence at that point. And she was like, "Yeah, absolutely, let's give it a go." To put it into context, the 30 acres, there was a 3-bedroom house, 2-bedroom granny flat on there, and it was it was 450 grand.
Yeah.
Whereas a 1-bedroom apartment with no parking in Sydney was like $1 million. It's like, this doesn't make any sense at all. So we built the glamping tents, which you can see 4 of them, and a communal building. The swimming pool came a little bit later. We did very little landscaping. All the landscaping was there. We just changed paddocks that used to be slashed into paddocks that I cut meticulously. You know, being English, I like my lines and whatever. And it was a dream come true. So people would come and stay. We'd do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then slowly but surely, the fitness thing kind of fell away because there just wasn't a big enough demand for it. So it ended up being a glamping retreat. We served breakfast and dinner. People would come and stay. All the tents were ensuite bathrooms, and it was a dream. But it didn't work once the kids arrived. The kids made it very difficult for the time thing. And then when my youngest started school, we'd put it on the market. I said to Liz, this just isn't going to work if we're going to be fully booked at weekends and during school holidays. And we had to make it justifiable. So it was a bit bittersweet, but you know, hand on heart, I gave everything I could to that property, and I didn't leave a stone unturned. And so I'm so glad I've left because I did the best that I could.
Was that the thing that filled your emptiness, do you think? Like that's something different, but you put all your
it allowed me
energy into it.
It allowed me to stay away from the personal training thing, which I didn't want to fall back into. It was something I always wanted to do, and you very seldom get the opportunity to follow through with your dreams. It meant that I didn't have to deal with people so much because I still find that difficult sometimes. And it was just, I saw an opportunity, you know, like I don't want to go down the religious thing, but you know, you sort of, the man upstairs doesn't give you things, but he gives you opportunities. And when Dad died and we sold the house, I was given the opportunity to follow my dream. And so I decided to grab that. I could have gone to the casino and had a great night, but I didn't do that. I decided to, you know, try it out.
Did COVID get in the way?
Weirdly, COVID made us, because when people couldn't leave the state, they wanted to find other things they could do. They found us and they realized, hey, we can have a whole resort to ourselves for 10 of our friends or whatever without going to Bali. Breakfast and dinner's included, and it's great. The problem that we did, and I think everyone who knows me will agree, is that every time we made some money, we put it straight back into the property to then improve it. And really, we probably should have been like, okay, there's just been a lockdown. There might be another one coming up. Probably better to save this than do it that way. So that was the one thing we didn't do that in hindsight we probably should have done. But then, you know, when we sold it in January, we covered our investment and we were 20 grand short of living for free for 8 years. And if anyone takes a gamble in their life and they come out with those kind of stats, you go running to the sunset, butt naked, ready to go. So we were really lucky.
Also, lots of memories. Your firstborn comes along. At the same time, you underwent a full spinal fusion surgery, which was something that you had to have, or you knew you had to have at some point, an 8-hour operation.
So I mentioned it back in when we were talking about the brace. They did say to me when I was 40, there was a high chance the curve would return. And what happened was I used to get a back spasm maybe once every 3 years. And in early 2021, I had 5 in quite close successions. So I went to the doctor. I went to a mate of mine who was a doctor who said, listen, go and have an x-ray, see what it is. And the curve was at 88 degrees. And I had no idea. So I got recommended a specialist to go and see. And he said, actually, you don't have to have this operation, but the discs are starting to get squashed. It's nothing that you've done. In fact, your sport has probably prolonged this period massively. But at some point, you're going to start bulging and rupturing discs. And once you do that, we can only operate on one at a time, and it's a 6-month recovery for each one. Or we can put a whole lot of rods down, straighten you up, and you'll be good to go forever.
So two titanium rods with screws. Geez, you'd go off through a metal detection at the airport.
2 titanium rods that go from the top of my neck right down pretty much to my bottom, with 28 25 to 32 mil screws in them. Okay. It was an 8-hour operation. I went in 6 foot, came out 6'2", and it was the best thing I ever did.
Mm-hmm.
And when you asked me very early on about was I in back pain, it was the first time on August the 5th, 2021, when I woke up, was the first time in my life I wasn't in back pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hadn't realized that I'd been in back pain all that time. I just got used to it. And it was the best thing I ever did.
Wow.
And what they do is they put the rods in, they put the screws in, and with donated bone from a bone bank, they insert that between your vertebrae, and hopefully that your body takes that. And in theory, the rods could be taken out afterwards because those bones fuse. But because it's all intertwined, you never take the rods out.
But then you decided to test it, how it all went, with an event in Townsville.
Yes.
A couple of years later, called the 30 marathons in 30 days.
It's so stupid. So sitting on the sofa in September 2023, I was scrolling on Facebook, same as the Ironman, same as the rowing, same with everything else. I came across this event, 30 marathons in 30 days. And I literally turned to Liz that second, was like, I'm in trouble here. This is not okay. Like, I want to do this. So I started looking into it a little bit. I called my surgeon and I said, listen, is this ridiculous? Like, is this stupid? And he said, no, the recovery's been fine. Titanium is stronger than vertebrae. If you want to go for it and you feel like you can go do it, go for it. It's not a problem at all. So and then the stars kind of aligned. So the event was in June. Well, nothing's growing on the 30 acres in June in New South Wales. It's not during school holidays, or no one's staying in tents in the middle of winter. So we didn't have any guests. And it was in Australia, so I wasn't going overseas. So I still felt I was close to home. So one thing led to another. I started doing a little bit of training, but I did say to Liz, listen, this is not going to impact our lives. I've got to work. I've got to look after the property. We've got young kids. This is not going to affect us. So on the 1st of June, 2024, having done approximately 8 months of 2 10Ks a week, I found myself on the start line up in Townsville. Now, it was kind of an interesting one. During training, and I don't want to give it away, but there was a few aches and pains, pops and twinges or whatever in my back. But I'd spoken to specialists and everything else, and a few others, and they said, no, listen, if you break a rod, you know about it. You're in a wheelchair, you're in absolute agony. And, I would find out, I'd get a little pop at like kilometre 6 of maybe a 10, 15 kilometre run, and I'd carry on afterwards and it would be fine. Like, it would be no problems. So yeah, got up to Townsville and started the 30 marathons.
So got to about day 27 or day 28, all started to become unstuck, and
you
started to realise.
The 30 and 30 is a funny one. It's 1,250 kilometres roughly, which is just, can't get my head around that. It's 30 marathons in 30 days.
I can't
get my head around that.
I can't get my head around that.
But it's only 254 Sunday morning park runs. And I know I can do that. I know you can do that. I know David can do that. I don't know if Tony could do it, but,
I reckon
that's the hope.
I reckon I probably couldn't.
Yeah. And once I did that, I thought, it's 7 a day. I can break this down. That's fine. Yeah. And the first week, I had the only indication something wasn't quite right is I got a few blisters in places that I shouldn't have got blisters on my feet. And I'd never had them before. They didn't hurt, but they were definitely there. And on day... And then between like day 7 and 26, 27, it was like Groundhog Days. The days just went by.
Well, I was just about to say, we got that picture of, I think it was the back that was, it looked like the screws were, is that the one we had before?
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah.
So that's what happened.
Yeah. So on on day 27, I crossed the start line and I just realized I had nothing. My legs were okay, my mind was okay, my arms were okay, but my torso had nothing. I'd gone from like a steel pillar to just a floppy mess. And what had happened, or what had conspired to happen, was that doing all the retreat and everything else, I was doing quite a lot of physical labor, and so I was very strong. And in those first 26 days, the muscles had started to waste away, and it turned out that first of all, my body had rejected the bone bank bone, and then the muscles had held the rods together, and the popping sounds that I'd heard 3 or 4 or 5 occasions in the lead up to even doing the run was actually the rod snapping, but the muscles were so strong it didn't move. It was just how it was. So I walked the last 4 marathons, which still annoys me because the kids came and watched me on that day onwards, and they still think I walked all 30 marathons, which I did not. The recovery for the next week, I thought this is going to get better. I was in a lot of pain. I was getting these really bad spasms. And in hindsight, Liz does say to me now, she knew something was wrong because I was stooping again. Yeah. And
so is that what you brought in there? Is that
similar? So what happened was I went to the doctor, and I went to have a scan and saw the scan, which is this, and I knew I was in trouble. So I went straight to the surgeon, and I said to him, well, he said to me, if I drug you up, can you last another week? I'm going skiing next week, and I really want to be the one that sorts this out for you. So he drugged me up, and I went and had the operation, which happened to be on August the 4th, 2024, which is exactly 3 years to the day that I had the first operation. Yeah. And when I went under, the last thing I remember was jokingly like, can I have what you take out? And I woke up 8 hours later, again, 2 inches taller, with everything that they took out.
Wow.
So I'm minus 1 screw and 1 little nut, but you can see where it broke, and it's solid thick. I mean, this is not going anywhere. And I managed to snap. He's been doing this operation for 30 years, and he's only ever seen 1 snap in 1 place, and that was a power lifter. And I managed to do in 7 places and didn't even know about it. Which it's joking aside, it's scary that I can do that much damage and not feel it.
Yeah.
Because I have a very high threshold of pain. Yeah. Is that what's going on? So I've now got 3 rods with a couple of braces going across as well, more screws. I had a scan after a year last month, and you should have seen me. I walked around the corner and I was like, what's going on? And they're all still perfectly intact. And that was one of the reasons as well for selling the retreat. I couldn't make beds anymore.
I was just about to ask that you sell the retreat. Was that a hard thing to do, or because of that was a no-brainer?
This kind of answered the questions. I'd been sitting on the fence for a while with it. Making beds and things was just impossible. So I had that, and it's so weird, doing the 30 and 30, which was such a big event, but having done all the triathlons and everything else, and then I have done a few 100-kilometer runs and a couple of 160-kilometer runs and whatnot over the years, but doing the 30 and 30, I feel like I've completed running. I know that sounds really arrogant and really obnoxious, but if I go and do a marathon now, it just doesn't mean anything to me, or I don't think it would. So
there's an iconic one in Sweden, the Kalmar, the Ironman.
Yes, there is.
Is that
there are
light your fire?
There's some. Well,
look at that. How can you not
want
to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've done a bit of research, haven't you, just to see what I do? I know your game.
Oh well, it's just me. Yeah.
I'll do it if you do it.
I think I'd rather go on Tony's boat than go to Hobart.
If that's where he went.
Which leads us back to the start of this conversation. You're working in a caravan park in Bulahdelah, and you met a bloke called Tony Mowbray.
Yeah.
I suppose it's it all out here, but you've also started RTH Performance, which has been established. Now, this is something that also really excites you, is the corporate speaking.
Yes, Tony's has ignited in me that I want to share my story with as many people as I can. There's huge parallels in building foundations, dreaming, risk assessment, everything else that filters through every life of business. And, quoting Tony, to his favourite thing is, rules and principles are the same, just different examples. He says that a lot. And it's true. It's true. It's just different scenarios, putting yourself in different positions, but covering the same things. And the feedback's been great so far. I'm very unique because they are such different disciplines. Running 30 marathons is different to rowing an ocean, which is different to triathlons. Whereas a lot of sports speakers out there, they focus very much on one particular discipline. And I'm very new to the journey, but I'm enjoying it at the moment. And hopefully it's gonna give me another opportunity, another reason to go around the world and see different people, meet people like yourself, and do things like this. And I think it's a story. I'm quite a normal person. I'm slightly chunky around the edges.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that.
Yeah.
Richard Hume, thank you for coming on Incredible Lives with Caney. You certainly have had an incredible life, and thank you, and good luck in the future.
Thank you very much for having me.